Welcome to Mobile Armor Radio, the podcast for all things Mecha. Jumpship incoming.
Welcome to Mobile Armor Radio, everyone. Here we are in episode 78.
Wow.
Because we've completely lost track of the season-based metric system.
No. Yes,
season
no.
7?
Season 6, episode 6.
I don't know.
Well, Pat still has down.
Well, call them 672. That leaves us 6 episodes from 72, so yeah.
I see. Math is hard, everybody. But I'm one of your hosts who can't do math, Brian.
I'm Copper.
And I can't do math either. I'm Rob.
Alrighty. And so with that, we're going to head on over to the Dropship.
Jeez.
Right away.
The show rolling.
This could be the shortest episode ever, Brian.
Dropship landing.
All right, and the Dropship section of the show is where we talk about what we're working on, and that section is sponsored by John Bear Ross. He is going back to his Patreon. Now by being a patron, you can get a monthly 50% discount code on my Mini Factory, Cults 3D, and CG Trader for just $1.99 a month. $1.99 a month. I should clarify.
Not $199. Yeah, not
$199 a month. Wow.
All his projects are available on My Mini Factory. Just search for John Bear Ross, and link will be in the show notes. We thank JBR for being a loyal sponsor and friend of the show.
Yes, sir.
Woo-hoo.
He's back, boys.
Oh,
That's a steal. $1.99 a month.
yeah, much better than that $199 that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I was a little dubious when I heard $1.99. It's like, wow, that John guy. Asking much.
He's asking a lot.
But
At this time of year.
It used to be that it was you pay and you give a certain amount of things on his Patreon, whatever how do you ever say it?
Yeah, tiers is what you're saying?
Yeah, but now we just do it this way.
Patreon is the platform. You are a patron
of a Patreon.
if you contribute.
So he used to have his stuff on there, and now he's just going to do it this way. So you just get a discount. So you're saving a lot of money, and you can just buy what you want. So you don't necessarily. Yeah. I'm sure it's for him not to feel the pressure of having to have something every month. You can let him work on things. So.
Yeah, that's definitely part of the trick there. Yeah, but anyway, we're talking about stuff that we didn't get done in a month. So I'm gonna kick it over to Pat. You want to start us off?
Oh, so what have I been working on? Absolutely nothing.
Is it just me or did this month go really fast?
It went by really fast.
Yeah, November was like a blur. I don't remember half of it.
Yeah, I don't either, and I don't know what it was that took up on the month of November so much that I didn't get to work on anything. Honestly,
I've been working on work.
Are you preparing for winter months in any way for your hobby?
I am. I'm still in the process of reorganizing everything, so I know where everything's at. Because Robotech, it's kind of hodgepodge down there. So I'm about 3/4 of the way done now. I've moved past the hobby table. I've rearranged the hobby table.
Oh wow!
And everything. Now I'm getting to the back corner where
all the models are.
All the models are, and I'm talking the models that, like, when we started this show, I still have models that we talked about in season 1, episode 2, on that shelf in that corner.
Pat, I'm not saying anything, but I think you're still working on the same model you got at the beginning of the show. So,
no, I got that a little bit later on. But that being said, I'm getting close to that and organized. I do have some stuff primed and ready to go not in case, but when we get into the winter months and stuff. So I still got that bag full of terrain that I got from the Cav Kickstarter that I really want to get through, because I really want to get I want to get, like, I don't have a lot of mech terrain for, I have some buildings that I was using from Dropship Commander.
Drop
Those
clean.
work really well. Yeah, those work really well for. They were, the paper with the plastic tops kind of thing. So it wasn't the greatest, very generic. But I really want to get a set of train ready and and organized, so I could just pull out a box and here's mech terrain that we can play a game on.
Yeah,
I really want to get some of that painted up and done. I'm not trying to do. It's going to be a lot of base coat and then dry brush and maybe a couple of washes or some pigments to rust and stuff.
Ground effects, yeah.
So, but there's a bunch of that's all primed and ready to go. So when the hobby get to the point where I'm painting again, when I'm not either reading or playing something, then I'll be back in the hobby. And I'll be doing stuff in Dropship and nothing in ComStar at that point. I can never do both.
True. How about you, Rob?
Like I said, November went so fast. We're still waiting on we talked about last time, the Sabizi from Extra Guy. He still hasn't put it out, so we're waiting for that. I'll be printing that up, I'm sure. And speaking of John Bear Ross, this month in December, he's teaming up with Maker's Cult on their Patreon to do the Project Jagdhund. And it's going to be the December for Maker's Cult. And in January, he'll release it in his stores. But I do have a picture of this thing. I asked him, when I first saw this picture, I was like, oh, is that like a 15 millimeter guy for scale? And he's like, no, that's a 28 millimeter guy for scale. The 28 millimeter guy goes up to the thing's ankle. Like, it's huge. Nice. It's gigantic. And he reckons it'll be about 3 bottles of resin to print this thing.
Wow.
So I don't know if I'll be printing this. That's a bit much.
So John, are we gonna have to print this hollow? It's not gonna be like that killer piece of resin the tank was that I didn't print hollow.
You just made it. It's a solid piece to beat someone.
Oh, like I said, you could kill a small child with that thing if it fell on its head.
This thing is definitely a FDM printer. I think it is gigantic. There's a bunch of pictures.
I hope it's cut well enough that you could put it in pieces on a.
Yeah, I think I think he says he usually does that, so I'm sure it will be. But just the scale of this thing, it's ridiculous. Yeah, it is a Warlord Titan or something like. I
think I want to print it then, no, because I don't have that size Titan anymore. I did at one point in my life. It was an Orc one, but I don't know. In my poor days, I sold it, I think.
It is pretty impressive. That's all I know. That this thing. So, I
would assume because it says Jaghund, it probably looks like the Warhound.
Yeah, it's got the wolf face thing happening. So I don't know. I don't know anything about 40K. So it is big and it's impressive, and I'm impressed by its size. That's all I know. Like, yeah, the gun is probably the size of that tank you printed. So it is crazy. Other than that, I've done nothing. I don't think. I'm trying to think if I thought I had, but I was like, no, that was back in October. I haven't printed anything. It's been weird, and I haven't done any modeling. I haven't painted anything in like a year, so I got to get back into it too. It's Pat's fault for getting Corporal Tunnel. I blame him.
It's true.
I'm
kind of like the driving force.
Yeah, in solidarity, I'm not painting until Pat's back. What about you, Brian? Got anything going on?
A similar solidarity, play there.
Let's be honest. It's the holiday season at this point.
Yeah.
Right around where we're recording all the way to Christmas, it's going to be rough getting a lot of things done.
Yeah. The most that I've gotten done is I did kind of make the effort. Again, I've been trying to get stuff prepped for doing like Halo Flashpoint and doing some demos of that. Previously, I had talked about building these like little bases to serve as like my little like 2x2 blocks for that kind of game, and at most I got them primed, and so I'm just like kind of waiting for that moment where like either football's on or something like that. I can just kind of sit down and get those painted up between the red and the blue team, and. And otherwise, been had a little bit where my printer was down again, but got it up and running. And I've been printing out the sample copies of the Corvus Games Train has a new like Space Dwarf themed set coming out, and I've been printing some of those. It's something that I've always wanted for like my Dead Zone space and stuff like that, is to have that space dwarf themed sci-fi kind of setting and buildings and terrain and stuff. So that wish is finally being granted. So I'm starting to print more of that stuff. Otherwise, it's definitely a busy time, and but I hope to get some painting done, and I've been trying to prime up a whole bunch of stuff, so I'm not doing it in my basement as part of it, which I don't recommend to anybody.
Pat,
I do it all the time. Don't listen to them.
Pat's got popcorn lung already.
I'm a picture of health.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of what I got on my dropship. At some point I'll see if I can break out some of my smaller model kits. Like I got a couple of Gundam sets that I've been wanting to dive into at some point. Real simple ones that I could set up somewhere that don't take up too much space, and kind of going from there. But yeah. Otherwise, not a lot going on, but hope to have more to talk about in the future.
I hope people, if you've done anything, please comment below or
and
put your pictures on Facebook.
Pictures, I would love to see what other people are working on besides what we got going on.
Yeah, we tend to post a lot of big famous people's posts or like high end posts, but we like everybody. So if you do or you're working on anything, show it off. So come join our Facebook. Or Twitter, or X, I should say. You can find us on X. We're actually on Blue Sky, too, if you want to go to Blue Sky. Look up Mobile Armor Radio. We're there.
Oh, sweet.
What you going to do?
Yeah, you gotta chase that social media game. Gotta go where the people are.
Yep.
All right. So with that, I think we can head on over to the ComStar and start talking about some other stuff.
Hopefully you have something more to talk about.
Yeah.
Message from ComStar.
Welcome to ComStar. This is the section of the show where we talk about TVs, movies, books, comics, RPGs, video games, everything under the sun and some things above it that we might be interested in or have seen out in the wild. And so I'm going to throw it over to Rob first. Any fun things that you've been digging into?
First off, I'm using this as an excuse to talk about a concert I went to, but the KMFDM released a 40th, well, it's not 40th anniversary for this song, but for their 40th anniversary tour, they released a video for Juke joint Jezebel, and it's all Patlabor stuff in it, so it was kind of fun.
Oh, nice.
The link's in the show notes, and it's on our Facebook page. But the reason I want to talk about it is because I saw them in Buffalo, KMFDM 40th anniversary. There's only a few people from the original band left, but it kicked ass. Light show was amazing. If you were epileptic, you would have died. It was so bright and energetic, but it was fun times. My one friend, she went in the mosh pit. She said it was too weak, and she left because nobody was punching each other.
It was too weak.
It was too weak.
I didn't get a bloody nose, so I got out of there. She
was pretty upset. They weren't the old people weren't moshing as hard as she liked, but other than that, it was a fun time.
I'm not going to argue that. I mean, old moshing at my age is
dangerous.
Tantamount to 6 weeks of physical therapy afterwards.
She was limbering up beforehand. She was ready for it, but
one of my other friends down the road, one of the fellow Pathfinder actually, is also a big KMFDM fan. So that's the second person that I've really had hype the band up. So I'll have to check them out.
Yeah, good stuff. Back from the day. It was also a small club in Buffalo, so it was great. I saw who did I see there? I saw Clutch there with Zach Wilde, actually, and it was such a great club. It's so small that it's real personal, and fun times. It was a fun show. So if you're interested in KMFDM, check them out sometime. I'm sure they're still touring. Actually, I think their tour might be over, but maybe not. You can watch it all on YouTube too, I'm sure. Other than that, I've been reading the new G.I. Joe comic book, and it's a the reason I bring this up, it's from Skybound, and they also have the Transformers, and it's they've decided they're going to make this world all one, so they tied it directly into Transformers. So this new G.I. Joe comic, issue 1, just came out last month, and G.I. Joe was formed to combat crazy giant robots instead of Cobra. Cobra, they don't even know Cobra exists yet, so they're about to find out, I think, pretty soon. But
oh dear,
it's all about these big robots come down and start causing trouble, and now Duke, his brother, I think, was killed by them, so he's got some personal blood in it.
Optimus Prime has that silver face mask, just like Cobra Commander.
Oh, that's the time.
Secretly...
Have we ever seen them in the same room at the same time?
And this is why the Decepticons. So truly, the Autobots are Cobra, and the Decepticons are G.I. Joe. So, like I've always said, the Decepticons are the good guys.
Starscream is he got messed up right in the first issue of Transformers. So now currently he's his body. Like, he's got his upper body, but his lower body is a hiss tank. So, so he's half hiss tank, half Starscream. But fun times. It's I'm not
attitude.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not a Kirkman fan, but it's not him writing. It's what's his name? I can't remember. But it's a fun time. So if you're into G.I. Joe or Transformers, and they're also continuing the original G.I. Joe series too with Larry Hama still writing, so that's fun too. It's up to like 300 and something issues.
That's
so
cool.
Yeah, I've read G.I. Joe since I was a wee little lad, so it's fun to keep going. And this new series is very different, but it's real fun, so I like it. Baroness is a good guy. She's on the Joes. Like, they're doing a lot of mixing and matching. They're like, instead of just repeating what's already been done, they're trying something totally new, which is, it's fun. So far, fun times. So if you're into that, into giant stompy robots in G.I. Joe, go for it. And the last thing, speaking of our sponsor, John Bear Ross, we're going to mention him every thing, but he gave me a preview copy of his new third Junction World book. It's the first draft. I'm about halfway through it. It's awesome, as always. It's amazing. I think the last one, I don't know when it came out, at least like 3 or 4 years ago. And it's amazing how much I remember from that world. Like, you just start remembering, like, oh yeah, like he draws such a clear picture of this world that you hear names and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, that character's this, and it all came back to me pretty quick. So I think that's a testament to his writing. So nice. Check out the original Junction World books. They're available, and this new one will be coming out soon. That's why he's back on Patreon, is because he's finished the first draft. That's why he stopped, because he had to finish this book. So but
fair.
good times. And that's about it for me. I don't think I've done anything else. I still haven't watched the new Gundam show. I always mean to, and I forget about it. And I haven't watched any more Macross, because I always forget about it. Because, I'm not searching Disney Plus for Macross very often. So I got to remember. That's
got to do it.
Yep, I got to do some homework next time. I got to remember. I got a day off tomorrow. Maybe I'll watch a bunch of stuff. Because it's for you fellas, it's American Thanksgiving at the time of recording this, but for me, it's something we call Thursday.
Fair.
Anyways, that's all I'm doing.
Not fair. Me, just still continuing with the Dark Age novel, Storm of Fates. I got into that one now. Again, not the best.
It gets better.
Still having a hard time. But I'm plodding through. But one thing I did, and I've been doing this a lot lately, and I picked up a game called Stranded: Alien Dawn. It's a RTS survival type game. There are different kind of modes. One of the modes is where you steal an emerging sentient robot, and you got to protect it from this conglomerate. But why I started mentioning this now is because one of the things you can research and unlock is mechs. And you can build mechs and use them to help defend, because as the game gets going, then the patrols or swarms of bugs, depending on what scenario you get stronger and bigger. So you got to build bigger defenses in this thing. And one of the things you can do is build a light mech or a heavy mech. And I'm at the point now where I've forgone turrets.
You're going right to mechs.
Building mechs, going straight to mechs, because I feel like they're just so much better because they actually move.
They move, yeah. They're moving turrets.
So it's really cool though, because you can only, you have a set number of survivors. I think the max you can have is like 6, or maybe it's 8. I think it's 6. So you can only build a finite amount of mechs, so you got to keep them up together and everything. So it's pretty cool that the fact that you can build mechs and run around and help defend your base against creatures or the bad guys, depending on what scenarios you work. But
sounds terrible to me. I hate RTSs. too much stress. I don't like stress.
Well, it's only an RTS. I don't know. I mean, if you couldn't pause the game, then it would be too much.
Oh, you can pause it? That's good.
You can hit pause and figure out what you need to do.
That's
most RTSs you can, especially if you're playing against a creator. When you're playing against another person, that's another story.
Yeah.
But then you just have to yell "timeout."
Or
timeout.
Timeout. Game on.
I gotta find where I put this whatever those little guys in StarCraft are that build things.
But I like trying to build something from nothing and make it prolific.
You do like your city builders and your base builders.
Yeah, and this one you really literally start from nothing. You crash land on, and then you just got to start building and researching things. And then you even got to where this one you have to actually kind of observe the fauna, so you can learn how to grow and eat.
Oh boy.
And stuff like that. So you have to sit there and then you find as you start unlocking things, and you get closer to getting the mechs and everything. So, but once you get the mechs, I'm killing things. Like I'm hunting now. I'm not hunted. I'm a hunter.
It's the tides have turned.
Exactly. I'm going out and killing insect nests that keep hounding me.
Those poor families.
Yeah.
Think of the children.
I do. I can butcher them and cook them.
You could eat the insects.
Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible.
You can butcher them for meat.
I'm pretty sure you shouldn't eat anything that's sentient.
And you can take the insect meat and you can put them in a press and extract them for oils and fats.
Oh, wow. What the game you playing?
It's actually a pretty fun game. If you like those kind of games, I suggest Alien Stranded. It's an older game. I got it on sale off of Steam. That's one of the reasons why I got it. Because it's like 2 years old now.
Yeah.
That's ancient.
Yeah.
In that's game old terms, it is. Yeah.
That's not true.
That's actually really cool. That sounds like a fun game.
But when I was kind of looking for something new to do, I had that long stretch off, and I was like, let me see if I can find another game, because everyone I know goes to work in the daytime. It's weird. But then I saw this, and it showed a pic of a guy jumping into a mech.
You're like, yes.
Like, oh, here we go.
Here we go.
Mech it is, and I'm done. But so, yeah, that's pretty much all I've done for ComStar, really. I been watching a lot of TV. I've just been playing this game and reading that book and going to work.
Damn work interrupts all our mech content.
No, I know. Now, if my laptop can handle the graphics, I'd be playing this at work.
It can't?
You need a work laptop.
No, I don't have a work laptop. I'm not a fancy IT guy. We have thin pros at work that we use, and they definitely cannot handle.
You can't. You got to upgrade your laptop then.
Well, I need to, because it's a 2-year-old MacBook.
That's the problem right there. MacBook is the problem right there.
Yeah, I mean,
a 2-year-old PC would be working fine.
Well, no, the reason I got the MacBook is it's what I record on outside when I'm not, or when I music edit when I'm not at home.
As soon as you open it out of the box,
it's already obsolete.
It's like a car. It's depreciated. It's obsolete.
There's already a new one out there. Apple already tried to sell you a new one.
Wow.
You traded it, but on my side, I've been in kind of a weird state where I've finally kind of setting aside a lot of the fantasy stuff that I've been playing, and I spun up a couple of sci-fi games. For one, I started playing Shadowrun's Dragonfall again.
Great game.
Harebrained
Games. A great game.
I will say, so I'm playing it actually on the Switch because it's very portable then. And I do understand some of the complaints people had, because it compared to the PC version, I had seen that the console versions were always kind of inferior or rated poorly. And I understand, because on the PC you'd use the mouse to click a destination, and the game would path them for you. On the console, you are directing them like a person, a little avatar.
Yeah, that's kind of annoying.
And the collision detection is not really fine-tuned for that kind of
it was
interface.
Never meant to be like that. Yeah,
it was never meant to be that. So like fences will have like this extra like sharp pointed block, and so it's kind of a small unfortunate thing. Other weird quirks with controls, like you press when you're in kind of tactical mode and you're doing attacks and stuff, you press because I'm a PlayStation guy, you press square and that brings up like their actions, and then you select some. But if you press square again, it activates Overwatch, and if you're not paying attention,
you hit it twice. The
circle to move forward. It's like, oh, I've now just wasted my turn.
I'm just overwatching. Don't mind me.
Yeah. So just some weird quirks, but it's kind of fun diving back into that. It's been a long time since I played Dragonfall, and I have Hong Kong. I've never played that one, so we'll see if I maybe put Dragonfall on the back burner. I really liked playing Dragonfall in the past, so. But
yeah, it's also but I can't even remember. There was like 3 or 4, and there was a couple.
3, yeah.
3, yeah.
There was the Boston Lockdown one too.
Plus, there was a bunch of DLC, like not even DLC. It's like user-created ones that they made like whole new games. Like on Steam, you can get expansions for it like crazy.
Was Shadowrun Returns? Is that the one that was?
That was the original.
Yeah. Set in. I think that one's set in London.
Yeah.
And then the Dragonfall set in Berlin.
Yeah.
And then the third one's in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Hong Kong one is set in Canada. Who knew?
Just a coincidence.
But so I'm playing that again. I like playing the Rigger, which is kind of your hacker slash.
You get the drones.
Drone thing. So that's fun. I also started playing Signalis, which is kind of like a Resident Evil-esque slash like android robot body survival horror game, and it's been interesting so far. A lot of reading.
I don't want to read. I want to play.
And then I have spun up finally Armored Core 6.
Oof. You ready to be frustrated?
I'm having a fun time so far. I've done the first, I'll call them 2 bosses, meaning the helicopter one that they put at the end of the very first mission, and then the one where you team up with Rusty for a spell before he gets like whisked away to some other thing. Oh, I guess I did do the one where it's a gigantic like walking drill thing. So that was fun.
Are they super hard?
It's had its challenges. A couple of those, like I had to play a couple times, but I will say like the checkpointing really isn't too bad, or at least hasn't been so far. So like
you're not getting thrown
you
way
lose
back.
that fight, you're like a minute out from maybe kicking off the fight again. So it gives you a time to kind of reset and everything. So haven't thrown the controller yet. I will say though, like because I previously had played 3 was like the original one I played. 4 was one I played probably a year back. I got myself a copy and putzed around with it, but I like never felt really engaged in the world. And I will say 6 is doing a really good job of kind of getting you into this setting of Rubicon and setting up the players as far as all the different factions that are fighting over this planet and kind of what's at stake. So that's been pretty neat. I have liked that. And then as a last thing, I've been I did decide. My brother and I think I mentioned we finished Halo 2 on Legendary, and we decided we're going to go to Halo 5 on Legendary.
You gotta skip right over to
we're just
right
playing
over
them in all
now.
sorts of orders. Like technically 5 is the next one that we need to play yet.
Chronological.
Yeah, well, not chronological, but just of the games we've played together, co-op on Legendary. That's the next one, which has a lot of very gigantic robot-y things in it. The titular guardians of the game are pretty darn big. And Master Chief is running all over them. But yeah, it's interesting to pick that game up again. I have kind of mixed feelings on it from a storytelling standpoint. I felt there's things that it kind of lacks. It kind of expects you to be familiar with a lot of stuff, which isn't to say that, like a lot apparently happens between Halo 4 and Halo 5, where all these characters from the books kind of show up, and they don't really get an introduction.
Or you got to watch they have a lot of videos like that they had going into the games where you'd have to watch it's like a little short movie they'd have that's like a preview to the game, and it would explain a lot. But
I will say, like, the trailers for the game, like, I really remember the campaign for it. I was really intrigued, and I thought it was really compelling. Like, this whole, like, the UNSC versus Master Chief, like, warring human factions or something. And then it
it doesn't live up to the hype.
Didn't quite follow through on that.
Yeah.
As I would have liked, but that did make me go. Then it's like, you know what? It's time to finally start watching Halo Season 2.
I haven't watched Season 2. I've only watched Season 1.
Yeah, I haven't watched Season 2 yet.
Season 2, Episode 1 has a really like solid like action sequence at the beginning that makes me go like, man, I wish the show was more about this kind of thing. Not that it would be action all the time, but like it's Master Chief working with the team, working with Marines.
Yeah, I love the team.
Not doesn't quite befriend the Marines, but they at least have names.
Yeah.
And then they're like, there's a good exchange, and they're fighting Covenant and whatnot. So it's like, man, I wish the show was more focused on that kind of thing. It does seem like it's still kind of interested in the weird plot that it's been putting together. I'm just like, I don't really care about these other characters. Like,
yeah, there's a B plot that's that you're just like, you could cut this out of the show, and maybe that's the key. It's just fast forward through those parts. Maybe it'll just be enjoyable.
And it is a weird thing where, like, it wasn't that long ago when I watched Season 1. Why do I not really remember?
Who are these people?
Why are these, like, it seems like it's like a 6 months later kind of thing. And so, like, all sorts of people have been shuffled around and whatnot. So it's just like, why did I not remember that this character, like, got fired? Like,
yeah, they never showed that part.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna finish it off, and
it's not that many episodes.
I don't have
anyways.
high hopes. I know they're trying to find a studio to pick up so that they can have a season 3. I get the feeling
gotta think it's expensive.
Yeah, it's. And I'm trying to remember. I didn't get a chance to double check. Like the opening sequence now uses part of the Halo theme. From the video games. I don't think, and feel free to correct me and blast me in the comments if I'm mistaken, I don't think Season 1 used Halo music.
I don't think I even noticed.
Yeah. Well.
So, yeah, I mean, Halo's music is a huge part of the love of the franchise, so I'm like, why wouldn't you use it? But anyway, all that said, that's kind of what I've been into, and I'm realizing we've been going long on this topic, so I'm going to kick us into
We're short on everything else.
Hanger and take us into our roundtable topic.
Now entering the MechBay Hanger.
Here we are in the MechBay Hanger. This is the section of the show where we kind of have a roundtable topic to discuss for the month. Now, it just so happens I think I usually land on like the November recording, December premiere episode, and I think for the last couple of years we've done like what do we hope for for Christmas kind of thing, like what kind of gifts we're looking to get or something along those lines. But I figured since we're recording right before Thanksgiving in the United States, what better way to discuss Mecha series and games and things like that we are most thankful for, from the concept of whether that's like I really like how this has had a huge impact on the industry, or this is a series that means a lot to me personally, something that you're very happy to have this thing. I'm happy to be in the world that also has this thing exist in it. And so I thought I'd kick off the list with in no particular order, but I would say Macross is one that I'm really happy. That's a series that I've been able to view and appreciate before Disney made it available to us. It's I know someone else is going to talk about the Robotech side of things. I do appreciate that as well, but I'll leave you to talk about that one for yours. But the Macross, like, not only was it one of those first anime series that I really got into, but it also served as one of the ways I really connected with some other friends in college, to the point that one of my best friends, like, we bonded over, is like, hey, have you ever heard of this show called Macross from 20 odd years before? And it's a fascinating series. I absolutely love that it's one that's continued its own kind of consistent timeline for the most part, for the Japanese side of the story. The themes that it really kind of plays with, the combination of having, obviously fighter jets are cool, missiles galore, things exploding in space, but also like such a huge part of it is about like having culture is what will help humanity and the universe like survive and thrive. Like, it's through song and through relationships and stuff like that. It's very dramatic and everything. But I also love, like the original, for instance, is made by people that were coming out of the trials of World War II and the turmoil there, and just so much of that we need to rebuild and just be resilient, and adapting to change and not succumbing to disaster, like, because big disasters happen in that franchise. How often do we hear about whole fighter squadrons have been wiped out and the only Skull squadrons left out there? So just that perseverance and kind of celebration, if you will, of the human spirit as it journeys and ventures forth out into space, I think is really a really cool thing to have, and to be able to experience. And the music, oh my gosh, the music is phenomenal. So that's my first most thankful for series, and I'm gonna throw it to Pat.
So for mine, I would say I would pick Gundam first, actually, because it was my first one. It was the one that I enjoyed. I watched it in Japanese, unsubtitled, undubbed, because my friend's dad was in the Navy and he brought back the one VHS copy that we had for many years. And another is why I chose Gundam, because then there's a lull in, a little bit later on down, maybe late 80s, early 90s. And then you start to see new variants of Gundam, and you see it come out in the SCN. Did they have a Gundam Wing SNES game, or was it?
There's a couple NES games, I think, for like the SD Gundam stuff was on the NES and the Super Nintendo, I think.
It might have been Super Nintendo, or it might have been what was the?
I know.
What's the Nintendo that had that looked like a Trimaran controller? It was the Cube. What was a purple cube? What game console was like a purple cube?
The GameCube?
GameCube. I think there was because my nephews had it.
And yeah. I think
I came home and they were playing a Gundam. I'm like, hey, where'd you get? I came home to visit and they were playing this Gundam fight game. Where'd you get this Gundam game from? Just out of the blue. And so I feel like at this point, then now Gundam is starting to show up more commercially in a sense. Or
we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Rob.
I see you talking.
When Gundam Seed and Gundam Wing came out, it was a big thing that changed.
Yeah,
a lot.
So I think that's why I chose Gundam for this, because then there was a resurgence again back with mechs and stuff. Battletech was at its in its lull. It was in its dark ages of
literally
the dark ages.
Yeah, the literal dark ages. And so, my nephews didn't know anything about the original Gundam. They only knew Gundam Wing. And then I had to introduce them to Gundam, and then they was mind blown that this was like way before their time. They thought Gundam Wing was like the first Gundam in the series. So that's why I choose Gundam. It's my first, and then I feel like at some point it brings back a certain resurgence in the mechs and Mecha in general.
It seems like it's always on the forefront of a resurgence, because it had Wing and Seed was huge, and then Ready Player One had the Gundam in it, and that brought it all back around, and to talk about a live action show, and then Witch of Mercury brought it back into popularity too. So it's always seems to be Gundam is the leading edge of mech anime, I would say.
Yeah. Everyone's always chasing it.
That's my first.
Nice. How about you, Rob?
Brian already alluded to it, but it is Robotech. Mine is a lot of chronological here, maybe not so much, but Robotech was obviously so influential on me because it's the first thing I ever saw with giant stompy robots and these things that turned into airplanes and shot millions of missiles that all streaked in crazy ways across the sky. Like it was when you're used to watching Transformers and He-Man and G.I. Joe, watching Robotech at that age is just like, this is a different level. Like, it's a whole new thing. Like, it blew my little brain. I was probably, I don't know, what year was that, 84? So I'd have been like 10. Like, maybe 90. I was somewhere around there. So, yeah, it was big. The first time I saw it,
was it 86?
I think it might have been 85.
85?
Because I think Macross was like 83 or 84 or so. So like,
the Robotech. I'm trying to remember when I had the Robotech books.
Too far off.
Yeah,
the colored spine books.
Yeah, I have a lot of those too. But because once I found it, I was like, it was hard to find. Like, I don't even know when it actually aired on TV. But I definitely bought the books because I was always buying like Doctor Who novelizations. So buying Robotech novelizations wasn't a big step up. So it was. I was right into it. Not really knowing what was going on, not understanding it was an ongoing story. So it's not like all the other shows where you could watch any episode in any order. You actually had to watch this in order. Like it was, and at the time, kids at the time, you couldn't just stream stuff. You couldn't just watch things in order. I don't think until it came like many years later when there was.
You had to find the someone with a VHS or a Betamax.
Yeah, but it was eventually it was able to illegally do it on the internet, but that was not until I was in like university. So by then I could actually watch the whole series, but other than that it was just bits here and there and reading the books, and it was so crazy. But just the idea of seeing these, it's sort of like Transformers. You're like, oh, okay, I understand the concept, especially with Jetfire being my favorite Transformer. I was like, wait a second, this looks like Jetfire. So it was a big like brain. And then obviously the people I was at it, like I think I told the story before, I was at a Doctor Who club watching Doctor Who episodes, and they just happened to be watching that when I first got there, and I was like, what the hell is this? And they were like, oh, it's some Japanese show, and but it was the Robotech version. So they like taped it off the TV kind of thing, like
sure.
Robotech version.
So yeah,
using robot technology. You recorded this episode.
Yeah, with the great voiceovers. But
yeah, love that narrator.
Only later did I realize it was a bastardized version of the actual shows, but it was very influential on me, and it was also influential on the mech viewing public, I think, too, because that was one of the first.
At least in the States, I would.
North America, I'm saying, yeah.
Gundam and Robotech are the two biggest, I would argue.
I think Mexico as well. I think the Spanish community is also a huge, like a Robotech Macross following.
Yeah, it was for me, it was like that was first anime I've ever seen. Like, obviously, Pat, you were exposed to other things earlier, but that was, for me, it was like, this is totally different. Japanese kids are spoiled.
They don't know what they got. They're taking their mechs for granted over there.
They are. They were indeed. So that was my first one.
Alrighty, so moving on to my next one is I'm gonna throw out there the Armored Core series. Kind of alluded to it before. Now I hadn't played it since its inception, like the first one or even the second one. The third was my first introduction to it. Outside of, I think, PlayStation Magazine actually used to have coverage on tournaments were done for Armored Core, and they would have like the customizations of the top players.
So you can do it yourself.
That's what drew me to it. Is like, oh man, this is so cool. Like you can just that ability,
the combos,
the customization from parts, like arms, weapons, legs, like the whole thing.
Yeah, you can change the engine in the original.
You can change the engine, You can create more horsepower, but you got to worry about how heavy this thing is. Like, there's just so many like considerations, and you can paint the thing and like make custom emblems. Like,
especially back then, that was a huge thing. Like now, you kind of take it for granted.
When I played it was on a PlayStation.
Yeah, PlayStation 1 was the first game, and I think PS2 for 2, 3, I think 4, and I think 5 was on 360 PS3 era, and then maybe on PS5 or 4. And then obviously long skip until we get Armored Core 6. There's a lot of games in the series. But I just like it was one of those that was very I'm gonna harken back to the customization because it's a weird thing with like Gundam and customization. I think back to another kind of example of like it's a Gran Turismo versus like some other kind of stock car racing game where you can like tweak Need for Speed, where you can tweak all the wheels and the cars can get wrecked, everything. Like Gran Turismo, this car is the car and you're not changing anything. Never be damaged. Like that's how I kind of feel like the Armored Core side of things was the like you can really mix and match and really play with these things, and they will all look really uniform with one another. It'll be a great visual style that's consistent versus the Gundam side of things. Like you put a Gelgoog shoulder on a Gundam and it looks weird, right? Like it doesn't look consistent because they're just uniquely different, right?
They don't make like Build Fighters, you can really make things look funny because they're just so odd. Different scales, like different Gundams are all very different scaled, so you have little head Gundams sometimes, and I really feel like that, like the Armored Core series really kind of pushed the envelope on mech customization and really set the bar high for games that I don't think we really even got until even in the Gundam space until like the Gundam Breaker series. Like Crossfire and the Battle Reports were close. Like you could customize parts, but it was all like 1 year war stuff. Now, kind of finally by the PS3 era, we had Gundam Breakers 1 and through 3, I think, and they're literally like the model kits, right? You can swap out these pieces, but they were still kind of like you have the arms, they come in a pair versus really mixing and matching. So
Like I said, I think it really set the bar high for customization, and I think a lot of other games are still kind of falling short of that standard that they set, and they're just so confident in what they're doing. That's very typical of FromSoft games, right? Like the Dark Souls and the Elden Tree and everything like that. They're like, no, we have our game, and you have to learn our game.
Yeah, they don't wimp it out. They don't be like, okay, we want to make it popular. They're like, no, this is gonna be as hardcore as hardcore.
They're very. I love that confidence about them. That this is our world. This is our aesthetic, and you can take it or leave it, but we're gonna do what we want to do, and we're gonna do it really well. So that's kind of the next one for me. I'll throw it back to Pat.
All right, so for me, I'm gonna pick Cav. Operations, yeah. Cav for me was the game that brought me back into Mech, playing tabletop games. Battletech at the time was still kind of in its I don't know, what do you want to call it? It's between Catalyst, WizKids, in the rebuild phase.
Yeah.
I kept seeing the Cav models at Adepticon, and I was very intrigued because the models are cool.
Mm-hmm.
And the scale is bigger, so you get like a lot more chunky.
Yes, 100%. And so that being said, Cav was the one for me, and I played it. The game was right. It wasn't as clunky as Battletech originally was. So we could play games a little bit faster with even to a point more robots, more mechs than you could in Battletech without dragging a thing. So
that's not saying much because you having one mech in Battletech will take you a weekend. So
yeah. But that being said, you could play like 3 or 4 squads of 4 or 5 in Cav, and you get it in an afternoon, 3 or 4 hours. So that was as far as mech games, because as far as mech games, tabletop miniature mech games, Battletech was all I knew. And so
yeah, so all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is fast and fun.
Yeah, I was like, wow, we could do this. We could play 3 games in 3 days. This is great. So I have a soft spot for Cav now because of that. I mean, of course, at this point we're Battletech is on a rise again. There are other mech games. I mean, we're in definitely a mech renaissance in the last 2 years, I would say. As far as everything,
ever since we started the show, I'd say.
Are we going to take credit for that?
We are the Renaissance man.
Can we back that up in any way? No.
Mech resurgence. When the end of the earth happens and there'll be records of us, it'll be these are the guys who brought back mech games.
Yep, they're the ones who are responsible for the real mechs that destroyed the world.
Yeah, not only are they responsible, not only were they innovators, they are also responsible for the death of humanity.
But how do you feel? So, how do you feel about Cav now? It's kind of rebooting. It's for them. It's changing.
I'm excited to see it. John's a friend of the show. He's been on a couple times, and I see him at all the cons. He's a great guy. I'm really interested to see what he does with it now. I guess, I mean, the little backstory: John inherited Cav from the original owner, who has since passed away, RP. And now John is kind of taking it upon himself to kind of stream it, kind of put it into perspective in a way that he was kind of thinking his line is that what he said to us in the past. So I'm excited to see what happens. I'm looking forward to when it comes out. Hopefully soon.
Yeah. I haven't heard much of it lately, so we never get to go to CavCon, so I'm sure they got a lot more information.
Well, that's going to change here in the future now. Oh, I didn't put that on the calendar. I got to put that on the calendar.
Pat has a lot of plans to go to a lot of conventions, so.
Well, now that I'm unfettered.
Yes, he's not forced to go to certain things. Yes.
Well, that's not being forced. I wouldn't say forced. Forced is the joke word we use, but I definitely have more free time than myself.
You were employed.
Not committed to
like I have more time in the
shows.
year because I'm not committed to other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely look forward to going to a CAFCON because I think that would be fun.
And it's in Texas.
Yeah, well, not so big fan of Texas, but I'll go to CAFCON.
You heard it here.
So, so Cav is, I think, for me at least, as far as the genre and everything, I think it's also, I feel like other people would probably feel the same way I felt, is that there was a space that needed to be filled in the rebuilding of Battletech, and Cav was able to fit right into there.
Mm.
Yeah, and they definitely use the Reaper Miniatures line of their way of making their plastics and stuff to be able to make a lot of cool mechs in their line is quite large actually, so
yeah, the line is huge.
And,
as far as
they're always putting more out too, so
yeah, so and they're great looking minis, so I'm very excited for Cav.
Very cool. What's next on your list, Rob?
Oh, sorry, I was playing with my Cav mini. My next one is
Gotcha.
My next one is Patlabor, because coming back and doing the show, and we started back into doing giant stumpy robots, and I don't know which came first, me watching Patlabor or the show. I can't remember at this point, but what it did is this show revitalized my love of giant stompy robots and the humor that could be in there. Like they infuse so much humor into a really good show about giant stompy robots that it's I love that show. It's probably my favorite. Like Votoms was close on this list. It was either one or the other, because that's like a very serious, like real, like your existential kind of show. Where Patlabor is like the exact opposite, especially the TV show. The movies were actually a lot more serious, but the TV show is the best. The OAVs and the actual show, and it's just a hilarious group of cops who have to fight. They get in their mechs and they have to fight out of control construction mechs usually, and somebody's always causing trouble in these construction mechs, and they just go off the rails and shoot stuff that they shouldn't be shooting and cause more damage than these mechs would have caused. The construction mechs would have caused anyways, and hilarious, and all the different characters in the show, and it's such a fun show, and that is why I like it. It's brought me back into enjoying mech shows, not just like Macross or Robotech or Gundam. Like those are obviously the big daddies, and they're gonna dominate the scene. But these smaller shows are great too. Like Patlabor is pretty popular.
Patlabor is a great show,
but it is such a fun show.
Yeah, it's such a great show,
and you just don't see like you're saying, like a comedy themed show centered around robots, but like,
and not just, and it's not silly either. Like there's a lot of comedy, like especially Japanese comedy, which is like, okay, this is silly, or it's just they're doing things for, like even Trigun at times. It's like, okay, this is just ridiculous, but this is actually funny. Like it's like a cop show that's funny.
It's a multi-threat. Like it's not a one joke comedy show, right? Yeah. You have like all sorts of different characters fulfilling different roles and like their personalities really shine through, elevating them beyond caricatures where they are the character that you see and enjoy watching. So no, absolutely, Patlabor is a great one.
It actually would probably make for a good live action show, because the actual mech fights are kind of secondary to the I think they did do a live action movie in Japan.
They did.
There was some live action thing,
but it wasn't as funny as the actual show. I think you have to lean into the humor. That's what the Patlabor's major draw is. Otherwise, it's just a mech show. But it's the humor and the characters.
really took him down the wrong path. With, I need a serious cop drama here with giant robots. And like, but the comedy version of the Brooklyn Nine-Nine of
that's what it's like. Yeah, for sure it is. Yeah, that's exactly what it is, really, when you think about it. It's a Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but then you throw in giant mechs fighting just construction mechs, and them using their weapons, even they're like, don't use the weapons. It's great.
It's a gigantic revolver.
Yeah. So everybody who hasn't seen it, I'm sure it's not many of you watching the show hasn't seen it, but do check out the original OAV especially. That's fun times.
Alrighty, so to round out, we're just kind of doing a a selection of 3 to round out mine. I had to throw in here Pacific Rim. Guillermo del Toro's just love letter to giant robot kaiju series and fascination, like, and to really kind of have this big budget like blockbuster of a movie come out with some really inspired designs and really like you could see like the love of the craft in that movie, where they have things where like the robots have to look like they're practically a dude in a suit, right? Like they have to have that kind of stock and build to them, and just that level of detail and attention is amazing. On top of like there's like a message at the heart of that movie as well, where it's about people of different disparate cultures and whatever coming together to fend off a greater threat and to work together,
to stop the apocalypse. They may even say
to stop the apocalypse. But even like how the mech is piloted, right, is about the connection that two people can have at a very intimate level, just like being playing with that idea of like reading people's minds and seeing their memories and living through that, and
the trauma that all these people endured from these giant kaijus destroying their world. Like they're all messed up. Every single person is messed up.
People. And being able to work together towards fighting that piloting those things solo is not a good plan.
Yeah, not if you want to survive. It's not a good plan.
Not if you want to survive. So I really love that movie. I think it's kind of that sad thing where like it seems like it's kind of been aped since then and Hollywood. Kind of Ready Player One kind of has the Gundam show up and Mecha Godzilla, but and even the new Godzilla movies, right, have Mecha Godzilla. So I will say, like, on the positive side of that, like the fact that movie did well paved the way for not only like the special effects involved, but also just that type of movie and setting is one that audiences are drawn to and are interested in. Because I think at the time it was probably a pretty hard sell. Because I think we're looking at the first Avengers movie I think had come out at that time, and so I think maybe Guardians of the Galaxy had come out at that point, but it was in that early Marvel era where we're just kind of tiptoeing into big sci-fi blockbusters outside of Star Wars.
I don't think it ever would have been made if it weren't for Guillermo del Toro already having a lot of clout. He already proved that he could make these big movies.
Yeah.
But they pushed the envelope on showing these giant stompy robots not in a cartoony way. Like they showed that their weight, they showed their like what happens on the ground. Like I love all the shots from the people's perspective of these things just fighting over their heads. Like it is such a and later like that's the beauty of the new Godzilla was the Japanese one. What's it called? Zero, whatever.
Oh, minus one.
Minus one.
Yeah. That from that had that same kind of perspective, and I think that I don't know if it specifically was from Pacific Rim, but it really had that view from the ground level of seeing Godzilla fighting, and it reminded me of Pacific Rim because that's the first time I think I really saw these giant things fighting in a city in live action from that angle. Even in anime, you don't really see it from that angle. So it's
and let's not forget the best sequel to Pacific Rim, which was Atlantic Rim.
Yes, you love your Atlantic Rims.
Yeah.
It must have been good. A movie's good when it gets spoofs.
I'm probably going to be watching it tomorrow on Turkey Day on Mystery Science Theater.
Atlantic Rim it's a hidden gem.
The Asylum, yes. And actual spin-offs. They got a second movie, which a lot of people don't like, but I do like it because it is very anime, where it's kids all of a sudden have to pilot these things, which is such an anime trope. And then it got an actual anime too, so which is where this guy comes in. So, and like multimedia, there's comic books, there's lots of stuff associated with it. So it was popular, and I think it did pave the way. And unfortunately,
it opened some doors for sure. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Pacific Rim at that point, came at the right time
to prove that they could do it. I think that that was a big thing. You proved that you could make these giant movies and have giant creatures fight, and it looked realistic. It wasn't guys in suits. It was it came at the perfect time to show what CGI could do and things like that. And unfortunately, Guillermo got it out of his system after the first one. He was just like, okay, I did it. I don't need to make any more. It's like, no, make more. God damn it.
I need to talk about how fish people how do they kiss?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you went the other way and did a
Yeah.
But yeah, it is such a good movie. It would have been on my list if you hadn't put on yours for sure, because it is very important as a movie franchise. I think it's the biggest giant stomping movie for sure, live action, that's ever been made. So fun times.
Totally. All right, Pat, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is going to be Battletech Alpha Strike.
Alpha Strike in particulars.
In particular, because this is where I think
you hate hex. Is that what it is? You hate hexes.
No. I don't hate hexes at all. I think Alpha Strike moves the game forward, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
I think it opens the door for people who were turned off by Battletech in general by how long it took, the amount of record keeping it took, the length, and, for lack of a better word, the minutia of Battletech,
which a lot of people love. That is their their thing.
Alpha Strike cuts through all that, and I think it opened the door for more people to play Battletech.
And in a reasonable
Battletech
time.
in itself was popular, but there were still a lot of people that didn't play Battletech because of the bookkeeping.
Yeah.
And
it has a
Alpha Strike
reputation.
rolls around. And then Alpha Strike rolled around, opened the door. They've since revamped and streamlined it even more. So actually even more people play. As evident, I would use the evidence of the amount of people playing Battletech at Adepticon.
And they have a new box set?
Yep.
Everything's like candy we're talking about. It's all around me.
So as far as things that influence mech games or mechs in general, I think Battletech, Alpha Strike puts Battletech to the next level that it needed to get more patrons.
Yeah, it definitely opened it up to the general populace, not the hardcore fans who obviously love Battletech for being a simulation. This is more just a game. It's
more in line with the way the war games are played nowadays. You know, it's a more 40K, for lack of a better.
Which a lot of people say that's like a lot of the grognards really, that's their big knock about Alpha Strike. It is too just like any other game, but it's like no, but you're still using your mechs. You still get the flair, you get the flavor.
Yeah, you're still playing better. You get the flavor, but you're just not saddled with. And you know, for me, when I say minutia for Battletech, it's very light word for me because I'm also was an avid and longtime Starfleet battles. And if you want to talk about minutia,
it was nothing.
Battles is my god.
At the time, it wasn't considered a minutia game. It just that was how games were played. Like it was from the old historics where everything was. You had to like keep track of your
like the old chip games. I mean, if anyone, you guys aren't as old as I am, but you never played. I don't know if you ever played a game of Squad Leader, but
exactly.
If you want to talk about a game that takes 5-6 hours to set up,
that was just the way it was. Yeah. So, but now I think attention spans have gone down quite a bit since then, and also. People just don't have the time. I think there's so much other media to you don't have a weekend to play a video. You want to play a bunch of other things like video games or other games where I'd rather play like 2 hours to play a Battletech game and then go to play something else too, right? You know?
Yeah, it's hard to spend a weekend playing just one game nowadays. When you're with your friends, you're like, "Ooh, we could do this, and this, and this."
Yeah, there's so much available. Especially like if you want to play other mech games, there's so many available. At the time when Battletech came out, that was it. And you want to play this, and even other miniature games, there wasn't that many. There was like Warhammer and a few others. It wasn't like there was a huge amount of miniature games in 1985, or I think it was that it came out.
Not too long ago.
Yeah, so it is when Alpha Strike came out, it was a big change, and I think it did bring a lot more players able to actually play the game. That's for sure.
Yeah, so that's why I put Battletech on my list, because we are where we are at now. I want to say mostly, not mainly, mostly because of Alpha Strike.
Yeah, at least the popularity, I bet. I wonder if there is...
Which is why I think the Kickstarter is on itself, because people were into Alpha Strike at that point.
Well, every box set comes with the Alpha Strike cards now. It's not like it's...
everyone... So I think even more so, because we had the regular Battletech players and the Alpha Strike players, and then that's your populace, and that's why that Kickstarter did so great. Not that it was not a horrible game to begin with. I just think that Alpha Strike opened the door to Battletech in general.
Yeah, I'd be curious if Catalyst has that kind of stats, or if they've ever taken a survey, like how many people play Alpha Strike or how many people actually play Battletech. And I'd be curious to know those numbers. The hardcore fans are going to always think that Battletech's number one, like the regular classic game, but I think more people probably play Alpha Strike just because you can play a lot more games.
Battletech, but I am of that mind. Is even though I like playing, I wouldn't mind playing a game of classic Battletech. After we were done, I probably wouldn't play a game of classic Battletech for a bit.
Yeah, it just Even if you know what you're doing, it takes a while. Like, especially if you try to play with all the rules. There's so many rules to the old game.
I know.
That's the beauty of Alpha Strike. It's one book now. They have one. It used to be 2 books. Now they put it into 1 book, and you have the starter set, so you could just get right into it and start playing.
Yeah,
I think it is the simpler, like, basic version of Battletech, but I like it much more. So I agree with you.
And then, Rob, do you want to segue right in?
Yeah. Well, I'm just a guy who keeps following people because once again, you guys have it. But my thing is Battletech in general. It's the Battletech universe. It's not even the games. It's the media. It's the fiction. Not so much the cartoon, but reading the books and reading all the fiction for it. What, the cartoon? You're offended by it?
I'm not offended by it, but I enjoyed it. I mean, it was horrible, but I enjoyed it.
It's horrible, but I love it.
The problem was CGI at the time was not up to snuff for what they were trying to do. Beast Wars had just come out, or was just, I think this was a preview for Beast Wars, or Exo Squad and those kind of things.
Yeah, but I also enjoyed The Last Starfighter, and that was, I think, the first CGI movie.
That's right.
So, was it?
Yeah.
Wow, the first CGI scene was in that, was it young Sherlock Holmes, where the stained glass window came to life? That was the first CGI scene ever. Anyways, none of this stuff, but Battletech, I'm into the fiction, like, way more than the games. I've read many of the books. I own almost all the original FASA source books, and I just love the idea that this world has a history that is detailed, probably as detailed as our history, for like 300 years. Like, it's crazy how much stuff has been written. FASA, at the time, those guys, they had nothing better to do than just to pump out books. We do another podcast to plug Dragon's Tome, or when we go through Dragon Magazine, and we saw the very first ad for Battletech. We're like, oh, Battletech's starting, and then within like a month, there was like 18 books. It was like, I don't know how they put out these books like so fast.
We won't even talk about the amount of Shadowrun books they pumped out for that.
Yeah, too. That was fastest thing. They would just keep putting out source books. But as they put out so many source books, they never, unlike 40K, unlike other games, they never changed the history. It was always just, even the Dark Age, they just accepted it.
They just added to it, that's all they did. They progressed the history.
Continued the storyline, Even if they didn't like some of the stuff that happened in it, they had to accept it. They're like, okay, this happened.
Dark Ages?
The Jihad and all this, it was Jihad, but we can't say that on YouTube. We're going to get banned. But all this stuff, it goes through, and they accept it all, and they reset it kind of, but they never reboot it. They never change the history. It's always been there. It's always, this is the hunt. It doesn't quite make sense, because why are there no computers? Why are there no cell phones? Things like that. Because the game started in 1985. There was none of that stuff. So it just keeps going on, and it's the same reason I love Cyberpunk, and it's the same thing. Not quite as long. It's only been like 50 years in history, maybe 100 years of history of Cyberpunk. But for Battletech, it's literally like 300 years of just consistent history and story that goes through it all. You rise and fall of empires, following these characters from birth to death. Like, it's like so much fun, and it's a lot to delve into. but they do put out these Battletech Universe books if you want to get an overview of it. But to actually start at the beginning, start reading the books right from the beginning and read all the way through to feel the ebbs and flow of history it's so interesting. Maybe I was a history major in university, so maybe that's why I like it so much, but it is crazy that they were able to do that, and they're still doing it. And through, 3 different companies that they've continued the story. So anytime they could have thrown it all in the garbage and started from scratch, but they did not. They just kept it going. So kudos to the people behind Battletech, and love them or hate them, the companies, but you got to love the actual work that's been put in. And some of the the writers are still around from the beginning too, so like Michael Stackpole, people like that. And then all the new writers we've had a few on the show, and we appreciate them all, and they're all adding to the story. You might not like all the stories. You might think that Clan Wolf is the Mary Sue, and you might
Clans.
you might hate clans in general, but yeah, it's a beautiful history. But that's why I like Battletech. So there it is. That's our lists.
Those are our lists. The things that we're most thankful for to be part of the mech universe, if you will. And so if there's any whether it be series, games, stories, novels, anything under the sun that's mech related that you are thankful for and would love to share, feel free to leave a comment on the YouTube page or over in our Facebook. We're also on Discord. We're on a lot of social media platforms, as Rob attested to earlier. And so we love engaging with our community. And so if there's things you'd love to share with us as well, we'd always appreciate that.
If you're a Russian bot, we appreciate you on X. We have a lot of subscribers now because of Russian bots. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I guess.
Thank you, bots.
So with that, I think we'll head to the ExFil and wrap it up.
We appreciate you, Russian bots.
Let's ExFil out of here.
And here we are at the ExFil, rounding out the episode. Hope everyone had, I know we didn't say it at the beginning of the show, hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving or Thursday whichever you celebrate. And looking forward to closing out the year. Hope things are going well for everyone.
Yep.
Stay
Merry
safe
Christmas.
out there on the road.
Christmas.
Have a
I
holiday.
can't even believe that we're recording this and we're talking about Christmas. It seems time flies.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, like I said before, check us out on social media. Check out John Bear Ross and all the cool stuff that he's got. And
let's do a shout out for your podcast there, Brian.
Oh yeah, I have another podcast that I'm part of called Dead Zone the Podcast, where we focus pretty much exclusively on Mantic games, their sci-fi lines, talking a lot of Halo Flashpoint these days. But got some new voices on the show this last episode that is coming out pretty much the day after this episode records.
Excellent.
That a couple of my other friends are kind of joining and adding their voices to the podcast, and so it's more than just me talking about things all the time.
Well, I'm glad you kicked that dead weight to Rick Hall to the curb. It was about time they got rid of that guy.
I'm surprised his nickname wasn't Anchor.
So the funny thing about that is all the bumpers that I'd gotten accumulated over the years from different shows and stuff were always like, listen to Dead Zone the Podcast with Rick and Brian.
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, well, I don't
Rick
know
and
if I can use the thing when Rick is not.
You just got to edit them all.
That would be funny. You just add the censor
With
beat.
Brian.
With Rick and
with
and
Brian.
others.
Yeah.
I just add my own voice.
That's right.
And
others.
That's all.
Add a duck squeak. Quack, quack.
Yeah. We must say that congratulations to Rick. He is working for Mantic now. That is why he left. So it's not like he's dead to us. He's moved on to a higher position that he can't be on a podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, so Dead's on the podcast. It's a fun one. We do monthly recordings and I talk about all sorts of cool, fun stuff. You guys also have a podcast.
Yes, I mentioned it earlier. We do Dragon's Tome here on YouTube. It's going through Dragon Magazine every issue, chronologically, we're up to, 163? Something like that, I think. Somewhere in there.
We're in the 60s, 162 or 3, somewhere in there.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
I think 161 just dropped, right?
I don't know. I don't keep track. We're doing a lot, and we've come a long way. It's weekly, so we're getting quite a few out. So it's a fun show where we reminisce about. Originally, it was just finding all these crazy history stuff, but now it's getting into the eras where me and Jack, our co-host, we started actually collecting dragons. So it's going to get into the ones where like I remember this one. It's past that time for Pat, but eventually it's going to get to the point.
I was old enough to remember a little bit in the beginning.
Yeah, but it'll get to the point where all of us are like, I don't remember any of this, and we don't want to talk about this anymore. But we'll see, because eventually Wizards of the Coast takes over.
There's a lull where I didn't get in, where I left D&D for a little bit for college, and then I come back to it, and we're getting close to where I come back to it.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. Even the episodes we always have something to talk about. That's needless to say. So,
and we're garnering the ire of some authors.
Yeah.
Canonically, we say everyone is dead.
Yeah, so we've had quite a few people who've been
I'm not dead
in the magazine come into comments. Why you keep saying I'm dead? We had to explain the joke.
It's like I can still hear his voice.
That's right. I'm not dead yet. That's about it.
But yeah, go check out those shows. It's a great time. You can hear more of us if that's what you want to do.
That's right.
If you don't want to do, we're ending the episode now. So thanks for listening, everyone. I've been Brian.
I've been Chopper.
And I'm Rob.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you in 2025.
Wow.
Ooh, Jesus.
That's the future.
This has been Mobile Armor Radio. Join our Facebook group by searching for Mobile Armor Radio. Find us on Twitter @MArmorRadio. Join us on the first of every month for more mecha discussion.